Next on the agenda is the status of the Kirwan recommendation. So this is a good time to provide an update and have some discussion around the status of the Kirwan Commission process. As you know, as everybody knows, this work goes back a few years, I think 2016 when it began, and it's been an interesting journey. The process began with feedback from stakeholder panels, work including presentations from a consulting firm, the formation of the Kirwan Commission itself and their work, and now the recommendations from the funding work group formed over the past summer. There is always a lot of discussion and often speculation about what Kirwan means and what will happen, but reality is for us, until legislated, it continues to be a challenge to plan for in some respects. Everyone was able to review the Commission's interim report issued last January, and that was really a report on policy considerations. And while there's very important information included there, we continue, like every school system, to see what legislative enactment or policy guidance comes from MSDE. We did receive greater clarity after the last session with the passage of Senate Bill 1030, the blueprint, which gave us a 3-year bridge to possible future changes. Now the initial view of the funding work group's findings gives us a little bit better picture of what may come in your future sessions for possible long-term changes to the education formula. Honestly, so far the outcomes have been pretty good for us here in Carroll County Public Schools, and the work from the funding group also looks positive for us locally. We do have some handouts for you, and I don't intend for us to go through them page by page, but want to use them for reference as part of our discussion today. One is a recent presentation from John Woolhams at the MABE conference providing a Kirwan update. And I did want to highlight slide 8, which does show the 3-year phase-in approach from Senate Bill 1030. That's included for you. And we could talk about all these. I want to get through a few talking points here first and then get into some discussion. The blueprint funding has indeed been important for us. The additional special education money that we received allowed us to shore up that category in our budget, which was in a deficit. The additional pre-K funding is allowing us, as we talked about just a couple minutes ago, to begin to expand our pre-K services on our own, which in turn may also qualify us for additional state funding. The Transitional Supplemental Instruction, TSI, funding has allowed us to design needed services to meet the needs of our struggling learners. The funding for the mental health coordinator position, which was required by the Safe to Learn Act, is very much appreciated because that was initially funded under the safety grant, and we would have had to assume that cost in our budget. And lastly, we're able to work with our teachers to use the teacher salary grant for the purposes intended to support teacher salaries, and that was, again, very much appreciated. Looking ahead at what may come in terms of the formula beyond FY22, once you get past that sort of bridge that I pointed out there, the initial review of the funding work group's effort is not necessarily alarming for us locally. You have 2 handouts in your packet. The first is a chart from the work group, and we could talk about these in more detail. That shows the projected local share through FY 2030. We're one of the few counties for whom on this piece of paper it says there would be no increased local cost share based on our current status and projections. And while one member is here with us, Commissioner Weaver, I do want to thank our county commissioners who have kept us above maintenance of effort through most of the years of declining enrollment and worked to do their best to offset our successive years of losses in state aid. That effort and the consistent 5-year funding pattern they have defined for us just last year moving forward is really a key to the positive outcome. So thank you again. The second chart from the funding work group shows projected state aid by FY 2030. And as you can see, we're projected to be one of the counties on the higher end of increased state aid. After a decade of watching our state aid decline, it's rewarding to see the outcome now. Looking forward, if this did come to pass, combined with the consistent effort of our commissioners, we'll be, I believe, well poised to begin to continue to implement system improvements aligned with our strategic plan and meeting the needs of our students in a more focused way. One final note on Kirwan, you may recall the Commission's interim report recommended various layers of accountability for increased funding. Part of that accountability is already enacted as components of Senate Bill 1030. An Inspector General's office has been established with the Governor's office. Additionally, the State Office of Program Accountability and Government Accountability has been established to conduct performance audits of local school boards, in addition to the already established legislative audits we receive on a regular basis, a routine schedule. So pending future legislative consideration, it's the Commission's recommendation to form an oversight board which would review local board plans in addition to the Maryland State Board of Education. And they have the power to withhold up to, was it 25 or
25% of new money.
of new state aid each year. So with that, I've done a lot of talking at you. I've tried to note and highlight some of the key pieces that we've included in your packet. I think this would be a good time to pause and have some conversation around that.